Hello everybody, welcome back to StraightA. Dawson here, back with a recap video of the Week 1 NFL 2023 season. Man, what a week. There's so much to talk about. There's so many takeaways from this game. We'll probably see it through with the predictions videos, the parlay videos, power rankings, stuff like that. I'm just going to give you a quick go through of all the games real quick and give my thoughts about the performances we saw, what to expect going forward, and kind of where my mindset is going into making these new power rankings, as well as kind of what my thought process for the rest of the season will kind of look like for the rest of these teams, for all these teams, because there's still a lot of football to be played. There's a lot of worries, a lot of hopes, and maybe some some confidence in teams that maybe we didn't have confidence in, and lack of confidence in teams we thought we had confidence in. So we'll see here through the games. Week 1, absolutely insane as we will go through our picks. I haven't actually put up the amount of points, or didn't tally up the points for our predictions, but I believe everybody was just around that 500 area. So it was very, very crazy. First up, of course, we have the Detroit Lions versus the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. And man, it was a fun game. It was, kind of looking back at it after kind of getting off that NFL hype, it was more of a lackluster game in terms of there's a lot of disappointing offense, especially from the Chiefs, who are used to seeing a lot of explosive games or explosive down the field passes from them and exciting plays, and we really didn't get that. While Jared Goff and the Lions actually showed a lot of really fun offense and decent defense too. They actually held up against Kansas City pretty well as Kansas City's defense did slow down the Lions offense, which is usually high octane. So looking down here, Jared Goff performed as Jared Goff should. He's doing well. He's a safe quarterback doing what he does. David Montgomery does definitely seem like the number one guy over there in the rushing game. While Jahmyr Gibbs has a lot of good flashes. I think as the weeks go on, Jahmyr Gibbs will be utilized more and more, but giving David Montgomery the majority of the reps, probably definitely over 50% of the reps, I think it's a good call for them because David Montgomery has looked good that game, and Jahmyr Gibbs looked good as well, but you can't just use him all the time either. He's one of those kind of explosive type players, so I get it. He was used a little bit in the receiving game as well. Mon St. Brown looked like a Mon St. Brown. Sam Laporta, I think, is a standout there. I think he's going to look good and really be good for this team as well. And some defensive stuff. Just want to say Aiden Hutchinson really, really kind of killed it this game. Put a lot of pressure on Patrick Mahomes and that offensive line of the Chiefs. Aiden Hutchinson could look really good this year, and I'm excited to see him play more. Otherwise, nothing else to really take away from the Lions there. Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, of course, not his best game. Threw a pick, but really wasn't his fault, to be honest with you. And in the rushing game, actually, Patrick Mahomes did a lot of his scrambling. You don't see, there's kind of a decreasing thing with Patrick Mahomes just because, he's such a good pocket passer as well, but he's also good at improvising. So seeing him get 45 yards on the ground is really, really cool and really nice, especially for 16-yard long. Then the rest of the running game wasn't too remarkable. The rest of the receiving game, no way got above 50 yards. Not having Travis Kelce really hurt them. Defensive side of things, there was a sack, there was a forced fumble. Really, other than that, there really wasn't too much to talk about on the defense. They just kind of did their job and semi-well. I'm not going to really tank on the Chiefs defense here because they did what they usually do. Just maybe a little bit more expectations for them in the weeks to come. So we'll see. Chiefs, I don't expect them to stay like this for long. They're going to be fine. It is kind of one of those Super Bowl hangover type things. Getting Travis Kelce back and the Kansas City Chiefs kind of getting rolling again. They'll be fine. And the Lions, I think they're going to keep up this momentum, but they will eventually kind of find some kind of some disruption in their game here in the next couple weeks. So we'll see how both these teams, but they played a heck of a game, and we'll see how they go from week to week. But next up, of course, we have the Tennessee Titans taking on at New Orleans against the Saints. Man, this was a game. It was a game, dude. So of course I live in Tennessee, if you didn't know, but I'm surrounded by Tennessee fans. Man, Ryan Tannehill, and I didn't catch much of this game, to be honest with you. I watched some of the highlights afterwards. But so most of my stuff is from highlights, watching some of the games throughout the day, and kind of getting on my phone and watching them, or talking to my friends afterwards who also watched them. So I'm kind of taking a little bit of form of information everywhere. This is recorded on after the Monday night game, so kind of getting this all up there. Tannehill, man, he's not. I've always been one of those people that give Tannehill a little bit of a little bit more credit than maybe he deserves. This game did not do him justice at all. 3 interceptions, really bad when you're only throwing 16 for 34, attempts there. So the ground game wasn't what it is either. Derrick Henry really didn't do anything else. Spears obviously wasn't there either. Hopkins was open from what I heard quite a bit and just didn't get the yardage, or he was missed a lot, or it was just a bad pass. A lot of different things there. The Tennessee defense actually heard decent stuff about. They actually held the Saints pretty well. You can say that's maybe the Saints still not having the greatest offense right now. We'll see, but they got quite a few sacks definitely from the game. I heard Jeffrey Simmons especially looked good, so kind of exciting to see from the defense portion of the Titans versus the Saints, who offensively looked really good. Derek Carr going 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception for his first game over in New Orleans for 23 for 33. I'm very impressed. I'm glad to see that he's doing well already over there in New Orleans. As well as the run game was not anything, so they really made it up in the passing game with Chris Olave doing remarkably well, and really cool to see that Michael Thomas is also getting some reps and looking a little bit better. Maybe after a couple more weeks that he'll, if he stays healthy, will do really well this season. So really exciting. Defense from the Saints also heard decent things, but heard us more against the offensive line of the Titans. So we can blame that offensive line for Tannehill's performance, but I don't think it's nearly the problem there. I think there is a quarterback problem in Tennessee. They need to figure it out fast if they want to get anything done, especially in the division, which is only growing. So we'll see. Moving on to another pretty disappointing game, in my opinion. I saw a lot of this game. Of course, Tampa Bay at the Vikings. Baker Mayfield. I'm not going to give him any praise here. He did fine. He's looking good. If he keeps it up, maybe this will go on. But he didn't get the yardage. He got a couple touchdowns, but again, I think it's against more of the Vikings defense than it was Baker Mayfield's success. He had good receivers too, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and nothing to sneeze at. So it shows that Baker Mayfield will be pretty suitable in Tampa Bay. So we'll see how he goes from there. The run game, nothing special, of course. While on the defensive side of things, it was good coverage from Tampa Bay against. Obviously, they couldn't really cover Justin Jefferson, who had a remarkable game, which we'll get to in a second. But otherwise, just overall, not too much to take away from the defensive side on either one of these teams, to be honest, except the Vikings defense really sold. Their coverage was not there at all. This was the not good coverage game that ended up still being kind of a low yardage. And I say low yardage with Kirk Cousins throwing 344 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, going 33 for 44. You'd think that would show that he had a great game. He did fine. He did good, I guess. I think it's more on the Vikings defense, who kind of just absolutely sold this game. Alexander Madison getting a little bit of love this game too. But man, something just did not click on offense. That just felt weird. It felt weird for the Vikings offense to do so well, but still be missing something for some reason. I will absolutely say the Vikings defense is what choked this game away, and they need to figure something out on that defensive side of things. Did not think they would ever sell this hard on defense. But beside the point, Justin Jefferson looks like Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison, very promising already. Really, really cool. Even got to the end zone before Justin Jefferson, which is really, really cool to see. T.J. Hawkinson getting a lot of love. So lots to love about the offense of the Vikings, but just I want to see there's something missing when I was watching that game, and maybe I just didn't see enough of it. Who knows? And maybe I'm just kind of an over-hater there. But the defense, as you see, just did nothing. Didn't feel like they ever put pressure on Baker, very often at least, and they just did not have great coverage at all. And even then, that's why I'm not giving Baker too much love, because it felt like even with bad coverage, he did worse than maybe he should have. So who knows? Either way, unremarkable game. And I didn't really touch on the Titans or Saints. Titans and Saints are on the same trajectory. If I'm not really saying much about their future, I don't think they've really changed much. Titans and Saints, I think, are going to be on the same trajectory as I thought they were, and nothing really changed in my opinion of the actual teams. Here, the Vikings are just showing that I kind of believed them a little bit, like enough in that 50-50 range of getting 9-8, 8-9. They're definitely showing it that they were a one-score team a lot of times last year in terms of like one-score difference. They're showing it when they're blowing games against the Buccaneers. Maybe they'll get better, maybe they won't. Buccaneers, I think, will surprise some people in the record, just because I think they have a weaker schedule as well, weaker division. They're going to pull out some more victories. So, Moving on to probably one of my worst predictions of the Commanders blowing out the Cardinals. I have way too much faith in the Commanders' defense. The Commanders' defense absolutely sold a lot of these scores. I think we saw offensively. I think we saw what I thought from both these teams. I think the Cardinals' defense actually remarkably showed out too. So I'm not going to give too much crap against the Commanders on the offensive side of things. The Cardinals' defense looks really good for a team that doesn't have a whole lot of talent on overall. So anyway, move on to the Cardinals. Joshua Dobbs, pretty suitable, fine. He was safe quarterback. Rushing game was actually not too bad for them as well. Remarkable receivers. And defensively, like I said, they sacked They sacked Sam Howell. Yeah, Sam Howell multiple times, 6 times, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Well, and interception, of course, as well. So again, the Cardinals defense looked pretty good, and if they can keep that up, they might actually surprise some people and not be an awful team this year. I think they kind of move up in my rankings a little bit in my head. Like, they didn't look too bad at all for a bottom 32nd team, basically. Commanders, kind of the opposite. I'm going to say this about the Commanders. There's a lot of promise here. There is a lot of just possible good things that can go right for them. Brian Robinson looked good. Sam Howell looked good. I mean, everybody kind of forgets in a way that Sam Howell really hasn't had much time to prove himself either. 19 for 31, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Yeah, it's not great, but it's not bad too, especially against the remarkable play from the Cardinals defense, which I think it's Cardinals playing well, not the Commanders offense doing awful. So take that as you will. Antonio Gibson, I felt like needed to get a little bit more love, but the receiving game from the Washington Commanders here. Curtis Samuel looked good. Jahan Dawson looked good. Terry McLaurin looked good. I just wish Sam Howell kind of got better in that receiving game with them. Maybe it was the lack of them not getting open. Maybe it's him missing reads. I'm not too sure on this game because I don't have many people who read this game a whole lot. Defensively, Commanders. Oh man, they should have had this game from 20 to 16, sure, but they should have had like 20 to 3. Joshua Dobbs and that whole team should not have been able to score as much as they did. Take that as you will. We'll see how the Commanders defense kind of goes out, but still some promise, at least on the offensive side of things, and we'll see how they develop throughout the season. San Francisco 49ers destroying the Steelers. Honestly, I'm not kind of surprised. I held my disbelief a little bit because the Steelers defense looked really good, or always looks good. This game, holy crap, not even close. Brock Purdy, he might be him, man. He might be him. Honestly, God, I know it's a great team of the 49ers, but how many games does he have to do well for us to finally kind of say, and I'm saying us as in me too, because I'm trying to convince myself, is he really the guy? But they have the team there. Something's going right. 19 for 29, 220, 2 touchdowns. Brock Purdy, great. I mean, trust me, he's not like the best of the best. Heck, he's not probably even in the great and inspiring as if you saw my tier list for QBs. But he's looking good. He's looking suitable more than a lot of other QBs in the world right now, in the NFL especially. Christian McCaffrey looking like Christian McCaffrey. He got a lot of love in the rushing game, so love to see it. Got him in fantasy, so I'd love that. Brandon Ayuk, holy crap! Who would have thought that of all the weapons, he'd be the one that would use the most? I'm kind of saying that sarcastically because I think he's a very underrated player. But the receiving game was very narrow. Like, you would think with a team that, of course they had all the talent there, literally all the receiving players right there, Brandon Ayuk, Debo, George Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey. That's their weapons for the most part, but you'd think there would be more depth in that in the weapon range there. Beside the point, Brandon Ayuk absolutely had a killer game. Not surprised. Debo, I mean, he not surprised there either. George Kittle got a little bit of love, but, he's more using that blocking game a little bit, so really good. And the 49ers made Kenny Pickett look so bad. Man, like, I don't know if it's the Steelers offensive line or if it's just the 49ers defense, but holy crap, they look good. The defensive line especially looked good. I don't know. 49ers look on fire this year for a Super Bowl. I'm not going to lie to you. If they keep up this momentum, they could very well do it. Talking about the Steelers here, I'm not going to blame too much on Kenny Pickett, but man, because that was a tough game for him too. A lot of people talked about Brock Purdy being nervous about the Steelers defense. Should have been about Kenny Pickett being nervous with the 49ers. 2 interceptions pretty bad, but it was because of the pressure. He's not used to that pressure. He needs to get used to it fast if he's going to succeed. But overall, it could have been a worse showing from Kenny Pickett. Run game, again, nothing was really there. Receiving, he really had nothing. George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, really wasn't anything. Pat Freiermuth was there a little bit, showed out a little bit of his love near the end. Was it near the end or was it in the third quarter? I'm not even too sure. Defensively, I mean, TJ Watt was pretty cool. I mean, it was 3 sacks from what I see. Yeah, from what I see, 3 sacks. He's going to show out as he usually does. But that was the only kind of shining thing about the Steelers defense this game. He's the only one that kind of really showed any promise on the defense that we've been hyping up. And that's on me too. I thought the Steelers defense would do really well. Again, it's early in the season, so a lot of surprises going to happen, and it was a tough game for the Steelers. But I mean, it was in their home stadium. So take that as you will. A little nervous for the Steelers, but hopefully they can pick it up as the weeks go on, and we'll go from there. Next up, man, another pretty interesting takeaway game. Joe Burrow, man, what happened? I don't even know. No one could have predicted this. I know he doesn't typically have the greatest first games ever, but man, that just looked good. They just not look good. Granted, I think the Browns defense looked really good, and they did not let the Bengals O-line, which is still always trying to be built up, even think about protecting Joe Burrow. So, but yeah, Joe Burrow 14 for 31, 82 yards. Holy moly, not good. Not good at all. Rushing game, fine. Receiving, nobody got any love because of Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase got a little bit. That's about it. And I don't think T. Higgins even caught a pass or got even targeted. No, I think he got targeted a couple times. Man. And then the defense for the Bengals, sure, they exist. They're fine. Not too much to say there. Now on the Browns side, a lot to talk about here. Deshaun Watson, not saying he's looking like his old self, because I think his stats are very deceiving. 154, 1-1, not the greatest. His rushing yards, let's see, are 45 yards, 1 for a touchdown. He's showing he's an improviser. I will say that's the one great thing you can take away from this game for Deshaun Watson. He's showing that he can improvise. Can he be great in both regards? We'll see as the time goes on. But he didn't look bad. He definitely, I've seen quarterbacks look worse, but he definitely isn't Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans. So, rushing game, Nick Chubb, of course, always Nick Chubbin. That was really weird. Nick Chubb is still doing pretty well. And a lot of love overall for the whole Browns kind of receivers here. Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper, and David Njoku kind of all getting a little bit of love in the receiving game. So really cool to see that he likes a little bit of all of them. And defense from the Browns, again, while it wasn't a big sack game or even forced fumbles or any high interceptions, they put pressure on Joe Burrow, and they put pressure on the whole offensive line. They put pressure on the receivers. Honestly, it was a bad game for the Bengals in general, especially Joe Burrow. But defense for the Browns really showed out here. So take that as you will. Moving on to a fun game, a game I don't really have to crap on either team, because I think this game is just how it went, how expected to me. I did expect a 2-score game, kind of to end off like this. Panthers at Falcons, of course. Starting off with the Panthers, Bryce Young. You know, it doesn't look good. 1 for 2 for touchdown interceptions, and then of course 146 yards. He was nervous. He definitely did. The Falcons, especially defense, did not do him any favors in that regard. But there's a lot worse showings. He's still getting used to things. I just kind of chuck this game and say, okay, he didn't do great, but we'll see how the weeks go on, how the next few weeks develop for him. Simple to the point. Miles Sanders looks pretty good. I like seeing Miles Sanders out there. Nothing too fancy, but he did just look good. Let's see, receiving, like I said, Miles Sanders looked good even in that regard. But other than that, really unremarkable from the receiving game. Now, granted, this is one of the games I'm not too sure about either, just like the Commanders and Cardinals. I'm not too sure if that was going to be because of Bryce Young's ability to find the receivers or just their inability to get open. Falcons have a great secondary, so I wouldn't be too surprised in that regard. So I'm kind of chalking this up of like I'll pay attention more to the Panthers this week. They're kind of one of the teams I'm kind of looking more at now in these next coming weeks, but we'll see. Again, their defense actually looks really good. I think the Panthers defense actually could get them somewhere in a lot of these extra games if Bryce Young can kind of pick up and get a couple more scores, get into that 28-point range. The defense for the Panthers can hold them up. So we'll see. Kind of going to the Falcons, though, I really like seeing the Falcons here. They didn't use a whole lot of Desmond Ridder. It was actually kind of like I said, low utilization game. But Desmond Ridder, 15 for 18, 115 yards and 1 touchdown for a game. They kind of kept on the ground a lot. They kept this game focused on Algier and Robinson, which is really cool to see. I don't know if they're going to do that for every game because Ridder looked good, especially in the receiving game. They actually used Pitts, whose favorite target, obviously, but not his favorite target, but he was like a good target for him, which I didn't expect. I thought he'd be more in the blocking game, but it was really cool to see. Obviously, not much else in the receiving game for them there. No Drake London. But Mac Hollins got some love. Bijan, even the receiving game, got a lot of love. Bijan looked really good. I don't know if that's going to continue, if that was just a kind of a big show out, but Bijan looked like he was going to be a heavy focus on this offense. So that was great. In terms of the defense, Jesse Bates, of course, picking off twice, and a lot of pressure from the CBs. DBs, I should more so refer to them as, but corners looked really good for the coverage from what I saw. Overall, their secondary was the one that showed out. Falcons, not too surprised there. I think they're going to kind of show some things, and I think their offense can keep the high pressure and kind of get into the range of 24 points. They might be able to win some games. So really cool to see. Moving on, we got the Texans at Ravens. Texans, nothing too surprising. CJ Stroud actually, he's safe. He was a lot safer than I thought. He did not look amazing. Oh, that was another thing about Ridder. The only thing was Ridder looked fine, and he completed his passes, but he did look really nervous. That was one thing I wasn't too fond of, is that he did a lot of the games. He looked like he was too nervous in that pocket. So hopefully it's something they fix going forward. But that's very similar to CJ Stroud. I think he looked also very nervous. Now, granted, he's more of an improvising quarterback, but I don't think he felt comfortable there, as rookie quarterbacks shouldn't. I mean, if they're especially getting their first start. 242 yards, not too bad. Nico Collins was really loved in this game. I like seeing Nico Collins kind of show out. Robert Woods also did really well. The rushing game was underutilized, I think. I think Damian Pierce had a little bit more to give, but I guess rightfully so when you're behind for most of the game. The receiving has to be a focus point. The defense, it was something. Will Anderson Jr. did get a sack, though. It was really cool to see him to actually get his first sack in his first game. So really cool. Otherwise, not remarkable from the defensive side of things for the Texans, but could have been worse. I think they did make Lamar look nervous and actually gave Lamar kind of a fight for him to prove something. But in that regard, kind of looking at Lamar again, he didn't look great. Again, he's getting in the feels of what he can do again. He rushed a little bit, but not too much. He threw a pick, so he wasn't very safe with the ball. Lamar looked like he's just getting back to form. Again, I'm holding judgment for the Ravens and especially Lamar going forward when they face some other teams. The rushing game, J.K. Dobbins, just bless him. That's all I'll say there. Rest of them, receiving, I'm pleasantly surprised by Zay Flowers. I'm pleasantly surprised by Odell Beckham doing as well as he did. Simple to the point. Defense for the Ravens actually, again, put some pressure on CJ Stroud to prove something, and I kind of slept on the defense a little bit too much for the Ravens, so very impressed there. We'll see how they do as they kind of face other teams, though, other than the Texans going forward. A fun game, Jacksonville Jaguars at the Indianapolis Colts. Really fun game. I was really worried that Trevor Lawrence would have actually a pretty bad game, actually, as the time went on, but it actually ended up being a lot of fun to see both Trevor Lawrence and Anthony Richardson kind of go off, and there's actually a lot of positives from both these teams. Colts looked really good compared to what I thought they would look like. I was more of a Colts believer than other people, but even I was kind of impressed. And Trevor Lawrence looked like he's getting into that that feeling out process of he's up to the next level. He looked really good. There's some bad still there, but man, the Jaguars looked good. Trevor Lawrence, 24 for 32, 241 yards and 2 touchdowns and 1 pick. Not too bad for his first game. Kind of getting that feel area. I think that 241 yards, we can expect a lot from him in that regard. I think we can see him in that 240, 250, 260 yards consistently, and I hope we see that more from him. Hopefully we see some big games from him too. Travis Etienne was utilized a lot this game as well. Very excited to see that. Was used, I think, 23 the plays, 18 attempts for the rushing, and then a lot as the targets for the 5 receiving, 5 receptions. There we go. Well, Calvin Ridley was a lot. I'm again, this is another my take that's been wrong. Thought Calvin Ridley would take a little bit of time to get ready, and especially form that connection with Trevor Lawrence. No, it's immediately. Christian Kirk really was an afterthought. And I don't know whether it was just because the coverage wasn't there for him or was just too much on Christian Kirk, is what I mean. But Calvin Ridley was just not able to be covered for a hot minute there, and he showed it, and they made him punish for it. Zay Jones looked good too. The receiving game for these Jaguars, heaven forbid, Evan Ingram, again, looked good. Everybody looked great. He has 5 good weapons and 1 great weapon in the Calvin Ridley. One of those being great, I mean. The defense for the Jaguars, holy crap. Again, defensive line did really good. The coverage did pretty good as well. They showed out on both sides of the ball. I'm very impressed with the Jaguars. And really, it's just taking my take a little bit further. That Jaguars are going to look really good this season. As for the Colts, though, a lot to talk about here, too. Anthony Richardson, actually, probably the rookie quarterbacks this week, probably showed the most potential. I mean, yeah, again, his stats don't necessarily show that he was amazing. 223 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and 24 completions with 37 attempts. Not amazing, but looked a lot more comfortable and more NFL ready than C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. Especially on the ground, he showed that he can run a little bit, so he even got a rushing touchdown. Really cool to see. Again, outside of Anthony Richardson rushing, there really was nothing from the rushing game from Indianapolis. Shows that the Jonathan Taylor, they need to do something with that pretty soon. Otherwise, the receiving game, Michael Pittman, man, this might be his year. This might be his year. Outside of that, there really wasn't much, though, so that kind of makes me a little nervous in that regard. But we'll see going forward. Colts defense, I have nothing really to say about it. Jaguars were really hard to cover, and the defensive line for the Colts really didn't show up too much. So I'll kind of hold my regards to their defense for now. Green Bay at Chicago, I mean, I'm just right. Green Bay owns the Bears. It's not Aaron Rodgers, it's Green Bay. Jordan Love looked really good. And again, I know it's against a Chicago Bears defense that was not touted to be the best, but still, you got to give Jordan Love some love here. 15 for 27, though. It showed that how do I describe this? He was an all-or-nothing type player in that regard. The completions he made were some big receptions, but he was also really not able to hit his target sometimes. So that makes me nervous. He did have some just regular chuck downs to Aaron Jones. Really wasn't much in the rushing game in that regard, but a lot of them were used in the receiving game, especially Aaron Jones. Let's see, Romeo Doubs was also really used, especially for the end zone. It's really excited to see, especially without Christian Watson. So that was really cool to see that Jordan Love was actually able to kind of really do something here. Defensively, the Packers looked fine. They did really good. I think put pressure on Justin Fields and gave Justin Fields really good coverage to not find his targets. Meanwhile, the Bears, I think offensively look fine. They look good. I think that's not what we ever were too surprised about. I think his weapons are there. They still got to do a filling out process for exactly who they are, how they're going to do this. So I'm not too worried. They look good enough to not worry me in any regard. And Justin Fields looked fine as well on the ground. On the ground he did really well. Meanwhile, for his just regular passing attempts, he needs to grow that a little bit more before I'm getting too touted on him. Defensively, the Bears looked like nothing. That was always going to be my worry for them, is that they're going to be able to score the points, but they're going to get scored on quite a bit, especially against a Packers offense, which arguably is not the greatest in the NFL. They're going to struggle against other teams, so we'll see. Philadelphia against the Patriots. You can never count out the Patriots. Honestly, I almost thought they would win this game at one point near the end. But whenever you're facing New England and Bill Belichick, you can't expect for an easy victory, even with a really big Eagles team that's really heavy offense and heavy defense. Lots of good things to see from both these teams, especially from the Eagles, who are the losers from the Super Bowl, but are looking better than the Chiefs this year. We'll see how that continues and how it goes forward. But they had an explosive start. Patriots picked it back up, though, near the end, or as the game went throughout. Jalen Hurts didn't look amazing. It's simple to the point that it's the run game that really did something for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts looked fine. Again, it's one of those things that you kind of got to fill it out. I'm going to give him a little bit more. A lot of the good quarterbacks this week did not look like they usually do, so slow starts for them. We'll see how they kind of progress as week 2, 3, 4, 5 all continue on. Rushing game, Kenneth Gainwell, obviously number 1 there. Really cool to see for Kenneth Gainwell, because I never thought he would. But, man, he showed it. In the receiving game, A.J. Brown did A.J. Brown things. Devonta Smith looked great, too. Simple to the point. Defensively, again, I think the Eagles defense did good. It's just that I think the Patriots have a really good coaching scheme with a really decent offensive line, really good defense, and just needs to kind of score those points. And Mac Jones, they trust him a lot. 54 attempts with throws, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Man, Mac Jones, I need to pay attention to the Patriots more, just like the Panthers here, because I need to see Mac Jones actually kind of throw more. Again, I watched some of the highlights, especially for this game, but man, Mac Jones looked good. He looked like what he needed to do, and I don't know if that was more on the Eagles secondary. This is a game I couldn't really tell, but Mac Jones did really awesome, and kind of seeing some of the cool things coming from Juju. Hunter Henry also looked good. Kendrick Bourne, another guy. Roger Stevenson could have had a better game. Zeke was not utilized as much as I thought he was, but that wasn't really the focus for them. Never really is for the run game. But receiving, it just was a lot of love for a lot of people, and that's what the Patriots strive in. And if Mac Jones ever had that really strong receiver, I'd love to see what he's able to do, because Mac Jones is just been reliably good. I'm just really excited to see what he does going forward for the rest of the season, and the Patriots are going to be a team to watch, especially for their defense, who may have not gotten the stats to show it, but they just covered well. Christian Gonzalez was really awesome to see, especially getting his first sack, which is really cool. They just showed out that they're not going to just shell out points for nothing. So really cool to see from the Patriots. I expect a lot of good from them, and they may just compete in that division. May be surprising, but we'll see how they do. Going forward, a disappointing game for the Seahawks, and I don't know how much love I'm really going to give to the Rams here. Matthew Stafford looked like Matthew Stafford, though, so give him that. But I think also it was because the Seahawks secondary was just... Seahawks defense was expected to be so good, and they just did not do it this game, especially against Matthew Stafford, who really didn't have anybody receiving, like, any names. Van Jefferson, I guess, is a name, and Tyler Higbee. But, like, holy crap, like, there was really nothing on the receiving side of things. Cam Akers got plenty of snaps, but, you know, I feel like he could have done better, especially in the receiving game. They really didn't utilize him a whole lot. Defensively, Aaron Donald looks like he's showing out. Good for him. Otherwise, I mean, it was, again, I think it was against more the offense of the Seahawks. They just did not look good at all. The Seahawks across the board really didn't look good. Geno just didn't look good, didn't look comfortable, didn't look like he did last year. Maybe he was filling out pains, maybe it's showing his true colors, who knows. Rushing game, Kenneth Walker did fine. Yeah, Kenneth Walker did great. Well, fine, I should say. I shouldn't say great. Receiving, again, I'm not going to diss on DK too much or Tyler Lockett either, because I think it was really, again, a case of them, either Geno not looking too good or, you know, just the defense of the Rams showing out this game. Goes to show you, but again, Seahawks defense did nothing. Absolutely nothing. I hope they do better going forward, but they did not look good this game. Exact opposite side, the Dolphins-Chargers game. Holy moly. Man, anybody who didn't believe in Tua, and again, I think I said it best, or me or Trathan both said it. They are the highest, or I said this, highest ceiling, lowest floor team in the NFL. If they play like this, it's showing the highest ceiling is existing right there. 466 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception from Tua. You're not going to see this every game, of course. But man, against a good, arguably a really good defense from the Chargers, they put out points, both these teams. And I'm never going to tout the Dolphins' defense as the most amazing thing in the world. But man, they showed a clobbering game. It was very exciting to see. Tua looked good. Tua looked really good. And I told people not to discount Tua. I'm not high on Tua. I'm not one of those people who said he's going to be MVP or anything like that. But I told people that he recovered. People have recovered from his injuries and have done really well in the NFL. And he's showing it. Simple and to the point. So keep out for the Dolphins, and I'm glad to see that this is the trajectory they're going and not in the opposite direction. Run game, not too much of anything else outside of Tyreek. Jalen Waddle looked really good, but otherwise it was just kind of a little bit of love for everybody. Defensively, like I said, I think it was a really rough game for both of them. They had to show out a lot, but they also showed, they kind of got over highlighted from the amount of points getting scored. But defenses actually did pretty good in putting pressure on the quarterbacks, as well as putting pressure on the receivers when they could. Chargers struggled in that regard, which we'll move on here, because it's really hard to cover the receivers from the Dolphins. You really have to play a lot of zone to even think about doing anything. But offensively on this side of things, Justin Herbert did do good, 100%. He kept up as much as he should have, but it was really Austin Eckler and the run game from the Chargers that really did well. Justin Herbert even got a rushing touchdown, which was really cool. But it was Austin Eckler, Joshua Kelly kind of splitting those reps, doing what they do best there. Offensive line of the Chargers really were utilized in that regard more than the protecting Justin Herbert, which again, they protected him, but it just was a lot of pressure in that regard. Receiving, a lot of love for everybody. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, great to see. Guy I never even heard of, Donald Parham Jr. Cool for him for getting a touchdown from Justin Herbert. A lot of promise from this team, but again, I think it's also that it's seeing that coaching staff also kind of came into play in the wear and tear of near the end of the second half, where they kind of just fell behind at that point. So hopefully, maybe it's gonna get fixed. Hopefully, maybe Brandon Staley can prove us wrong and do something, but I'm doubtful in that regard. So hopefully, the Chargers can kind of pull out a victory next time, but we'll see. Yep, we're to this game. By the way, Empire Field at Mile High, for anybody who watched that other video about us debating about what the stadium and the field was named. I knew it was still Mile High. Thank you very much. Simple to the point, what I'm going to say about this game is that it was a lot of good, a lot of bad for both teams. Or sorry, I should say this. A lot of good with some worries. A lot of worries. Russell Wilson, Jimmy G both look good. They completed their passes. They got the touchdowns. Both teams didn't really have... Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Raiders had a lot of receivers, while Jimmy G did what he needed to, but he did less than like you would expect from a receiving game like that. Seemed like Jimmy G liked Jacoby Myers more than Devontae Adams, and the run game for the Raiders just wasn't there that game. Offensive line defense for the Raiders was fine, nothing too remarkable. For the Broncos side of things, I'm glad to see Russell Wilson look as good as he does. He looks good. I'm not nervous about Russell Wilson anymore. Granted, it was against a weaker team in the Raiders, especially on the defensive end of things. But he looked good. He completed his passes. Didn't take a whole lot of risks. The run game was fine. Not remarkable at all, but fine. And he utilized a lot of weapons. Sorry, I shouldn't say weapons. He utilized a lot of people. None of them were really weapons. Cortland Sutton got a little bit of love. He showed that he can do something. Perrine, I think, was also really used in that receiving game a lot more than I thought he would be. And then he just split it off between everybody else he could. I don't think there's going to be any explosive plays from this team unless they start showing out more. Simple to the point. Defensively from the Broncos, not much stat line wise, but it was promising to see that they did do well in just putting pressure on the Raiders. So not worried, but we need to see more from them before I'm getting really too excited. So Denver Broncos took a loss here. It's not awful to see this because the Raiders did perform well, but I hope both these teams, their trajectory has to go up more if they want to actually end up the season pretty well. Meanwhile, Dallas Cowboys at Giants. Holy moly! Everybody knows this part. It was the Cowboys defense game. That's not Dak's game. Dak did nothing. They kept it on the ground once they got a pretty good score for the most part. CeeDee Lamb really wasn't utilized, but again, it was because the receiving game really wasn't relevant. Defensively, holy moly. 5, 6, 7 sacks, 2 interceptions, 2 for touchdowns, I believe. 2 forced fumbles, 3 forced fumbles. The Giants didn't have a chance. I don't know. It's definitely, I want to say this, it's definitely the Cowboys showing that they are one of the best defensive lines in this game. And I'm not going to, and even their secondary, which I said was only good, they looked really good. Meanwhile, Daniel Jones, I don't want to blame him too much because the defense didn't give him a break. They didn't give the run game a break. The Giants, I don't know if they really had a chance from the very beginning. I'll be honest with you, because they got shelled out. Hopefully they look better. I think it's showing some cracks in the armor of what the Giants are really capable of. But man, I'm just gonna not even talk about this team because the Giants defense didn't do anything either. But granted, they did fine. They just kept the game at a reasonable level, I guess. Simple and to the point. That's all I gotta say about this game. It's just wow. And I'm not really saying too much about the future of these teams in the season, outside of just saying hopefully the trajectory goes this way or that way. It's because weeks 1, 2, and even 3 to some regard are feeling out games. Are games just to see what the teams are feeling like. And then when you get to 4, 5, 6, 7, those are more prove-it games. 1 through 3 are kind of like an extra preseason in my regard. Of a lot of these teams are still getting used to things. Obviously, you'd rather start 2-1, 3-0 than 0-3 or 1-2, especially because of your momentum. But a lot of these games are still teams figuring things out and exactly how they're going to shape out to be. Because it could just be the Bengals having a bad game, could be the Giants having an awful game, could be the Cowboys having a great game, could be the Dolphins having a great game, and we wouldn't know it until week 2 or week 3 if we see more cracks in the armor and see them being more consistently in the average area. Beside the point, we got one more. This Monday night game from the Buffalo Bills at Jets. For one, please pray for Aaron Rodgers. Know that he's facing a possible ACL injury. So I'm gonna not talk about that too much because I don't like ever talking about injuries, especially the biggest injury right now this week. In regards to the Bills, we're gonna start with them first. Josh Allen, man, he's selling, man. Again, these top quarterbacks are not looking good. Patrick Mahomes looked fine, but he should be looking great. Josh Allen threw a lot of picks, looking like Dak Prescott out there. Joe Burrow did not complete his passes and got a lot of pressure on him. These 3 quarterbacks just did not show it out this week. He had the yardage, sure, but he did not show much else outside of that. The run game was fine, and the receiving game, Stephon Diggs really carried the team there. Dalton Kincaid actually was really cool and really fun to watch. Hopefully he's utilized in the future. The Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid combo was actually really cool. Defensively, they did really good in the first half, and then from there kind of gave up to the Jets offense, which I don't even think is very remarkable. I am actually kind of happy now that the QB tier list is out and kind of everything. I'm glad Zach Wilson is getting a shot. I don't know if I really trust him that much, but I'm glad he's getting the shot. It's promising to see, and of course, 140, 1-1, not great, but we'll see. He's thrown into a pretty this situation, so I'm not going to say too much about it. Breece Hall utilized, or I shouldn't say he was utilized a whole lot. He was utilized a lot, but he showed out for the times he was, and obviously his rushing games. Obviously, one of them is a little bit more slanted for 83 yards, but still did look good in the receiving game. Got his 20-yard receiving, not touchdown, receiving yards. So really cool to see Dalvin Cook still filling that part out. Alan Lazard, Garrett Wilson. They're fine. Most of the receiving games kind of just split between a little bit of everybody. Defensively, though, is where the Jets really shined. Defensive line showed out a lot, and interceptions from Jordan Whitehead, taking all 3 of the picks this game. They were showing out, especially in the second half. And I think the Jets, for some reason, still look like they're in that same boat as I thought they were going to be. I never thought they were going to be that big 11-6 team. I think they're still in that 9-8 range for me. And I think with them having the team structure they did this game, showing what they still were able to do, if the offense can keep it up, they could easily go 9-8, 10-7, whatever. Bills, again, holding my critiques for them till we get to see more and more games, because Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, they never typically have the best start to the season, but usually peak out really well near the middle of the season and can carry that on toward the playoffs. So we'll see. A lot of these games are very surprising to see, and just a lot of good and a lot of bad, a lot of unexpected. And I'm going to talk about more than that in my parlays, predictions videos, power rankings, a lot of that. Actually, I got to figure out my power rankings now. But that's all I've really got to say about this week's games. A lot to talk about there. Hopefully I didn't keep you too long, but hopefully you enjoyed the video. Really excited to see where these teams end up being by the end of the season and how even next week goes. And please tune in for our predictions video, and please tune in for my power rankings, where a lot of the guys will kind of react to see whether I'm really in my right mind or if I'm kind of crazy and out of it. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys later. StraightA Dawson out.